So you're bored, your life is boring, and you decide to log on to World of Warcraft. And you get on one of your alts. You see that Blizzard decides that some trees just don't need to have trunks, and vines don't need to be attached to the things they grow on. So here's a video to help you gear your alts. Hey guys, what is up? This is Yaji here, and I didn't say in the beginning, but this is going to be strictly a PvP guide on how to gear your PvP character. So you might already see in the background that I'm already doing a dungeon. You might wonder why. But I guess we're going to talk about it a little bit later, and we're just going to kind of jump into the correct way to gear. More specifically, it's going to be the fastest way to gear. So I had a video out a little bit earlier. Not only is that a little bit outdated because of the way gear changed, but also it was just about literally what pieces you should get, and people kind of misunderstood the point of the video. So this video is going to be a little bit more about what I assume that you wanted from the last video, and I think it's going to help you out on a lot of your alts, especially with Warlords of Draenor coming and free 90s, and this is really going to help you out a lot. So what I really want to talk about is the best way to get honor. So right off the bat, I want to talk about two things that seem really obvious to people, and those are going to be, well, if I need gear, I'm going to spam BGs, and I'm also going to buy some gear off the auction house. So let's talk about, really briefly, how those things are actually one of the worst things that you can do. So buying gear off the auction house, the item level difference between the PvP gear and the crafted gear that came out at the very beginning of MOP is actually very, very bad. You actually get more benefit from having just regular PvE gear on than having the PvP blues from a year ago. So don't waste your money, don't waste blacksmithing. It's not worth your time. Now the other thing is people are going to want to spam BGs, and it's actually one of the last things you want to do. Something can be said for doing your first BG win of the day, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. What I actually want to talk about is something they nerfed recently, and it's a nerf slash buff. It depends on what kind of server you want. I'm going to throw up the map really quick so you guys can see where they're at. This is where you go for Alliance, and this is where you go for Horde. And since I had people complain last time, it's in Pandaria, which is in Azeroth. You should know these things, though, guys. This is the PvP rares, and there's PvP rares for the Alliance and PvP rares for the Horde, and they're different, and all that kind of stuff. So, what this is just rares that are in Crasserang Wilds. I'm sure you've heard of them, and they drop honor every time you kill them. Well, it used to be every time they killed them, and the nerf slash buff that they did is now they only drop honor on per tune once a day. And this is a nerf for smaller servers like I'm on Airy Peak. It's a small PvE server. It's a pretty big nerf for me, but if you're on a big server like Tichondrius and you're trying to get PvP rares, it's almost impossible. But now, since everyone can only loot them once a day per tune, they're actually a lot easier to farm because less people are spamming them. So this is something that's kind of a big buff for large servers and a big nerf for small servers. Don't have these available. There is a prerequisite quest, which is right here, and then when you go through that, play through one or two quests, and then you finally have the rares available to you. This is the Alliance ones. I don't know the Horde ones. Sorry. So while we are talking about server size, we should talk about Tolbarad as well, because Tolbarad is going to depend on your server, faction, and all that kind of stuff. So for me, again, on Airy Peak, where it's a 97% Alliance on a dead PvE realm, it's really easy for me to just queue into Tolbarad, always get the queue, and win every time while AFKing. Which is kind of nice, but it's not always the same for everybody else. But it's still a crazy amount of honor. It's 15 minute. It can't be any shorter. It can be longer, but if you win, it's just 1,000 honor, and especially if you use your banners correctly. So it's something that you should always do every week and try to get that done. So I'm gonna throw those up over here. Also, don't forget to use your banners. So if you don't know what these banners are, I'm going to talk about them really quickly. I don't have any images or anything, but they're your guild battle standards, and you can get the 5, 10, and 15% ones. The 15% one is for doing 15,000 dailies, so if your guild has been around for a long time, that's not too hard to get. Otherwise, it's really hard to get. But you're just even if your guild doesn't have it, just try to swap to another guild that does and buy it, and you can go back to your other guild and all that kind of stuff. But those are the banners that you should definitely have no matter what you're doing. And it's also really important to use them in BGs too. And this is kind of a really nice segue to go back into talking about BGs and why am I dungeoning when I want to get some honor. So this is going to be the controversial part of the video where I tell you to not BG in dungeon instead. And if you're not really clued into this already, you're about to see why it's so much better. Now for Alliance, I can say it's really almost a wash. But for Horde, man, my heart goes out to Horde that just wants to BG, man. Like, if you guys don't know, you're all Alliance players, Horde has to wait. Their average queues are usually, say, 12 minutes, but it's actually around 15 to 20 minutes for a BG queue. So that means if they queue into BG and lose in 10 minutes, they've spent twice as much time waiting for that to happen than they've actually done PvPing in that game. So I feel my heart goes out to you. I don't know why you really BG spam as a Horde when it's that bad, but you can see a little bit why Horde wins more often than Alliance when they have to wait 20 minutes. They're kind of a little bit more determined. So let's talk about some statistics here. So every time that you finish a dungeon, you're going to get just about 500 justice. Conversion, they also nerfed the conversion rate. It used to be 375 for 500. It's now an even 2 to 1, and it's 250 for 500. And dungeons are still faster than doing BGs. And I know that's really weird, but that's just kind of the way that it is. So I've gone ahead and done the math for you guys because I'm a nerd like that, and taking into consideration that Horde queues can be up to 20 minutes long. I said somewhere an average between 15 and 20, so it's 17 and a half, but don't worry about that. If you have a 100% win chance, like you're doing a pre-made with your Horde and pretty much win every single game, dungeons are 300% faster. And if you are assuming that there's a 50% win chance, then their dungeons are 600% faster for getting honor than BGs. So that's kind of a shocking statistic. Now for Alliance, it's not really quite so drastic because there are quite a few faster queues. They're almost instant most of the time. But the statistics the way they are, Alliance loses about 66% of the time. It means Horde wins about 66% of the time. So it's about closer to 60, but we're going to say just for 2/3. So with that in consideration, dungeons are still faster than BGs for Alliance, and it's in about a factor of 200%. And if you are winning a lot, and 300% otherwise. So those are pretty staggering numbers, and it's something for you to consider. But the banner that I was just talking about earlier does not increase your justice gain. It only increases your honor gain. So that's something that you can consider now with all this new information present. But it's really not that important because no matter what you're going to do, 15% will never equal 600%. So I hope this helps you out, and let's move on to talking about how you're going to gear your character. So the last thing that's going to be on your to-do list, or WoW chores, if you will, are the Celestials. And you probably already know about the Celestials, but just in case you don't, it's on the Timeless Isle, and you're going to also want to have Warforged Seals, which gives you a double roll. And they have a chance to give you Prideful gear, which is actually quite nice. So pretty much just do a couple dailies, and I'll show you a few in the background, and some, I guess you could say, life hacks for WoW dailies, if you'd want to do that kind of thing. But yeah, just make sure you get 50 lesser charms a day, doing dailies, killing rares, that kind of stuff, and or 50 lesser charms a week, sorry, not a day, and make sure you get your Warforged Seals before you go to the Celestials. So what's changed from 5.4 is actually what kind of gear that you're going to need to get as an alt. So let's talk about a few things here. There's now a set bonus on your trinkets. If you have 2 trinkets that are PvP, you get a lot of resilience. So if you're a class that gets focused a lot, it's going to be really important to get those first, to get that set bonus. Additionally, you also might want to be getting your gloves because it depends on what class you are, because some gloves are really, really good and some gloves are really, really bad. If you don't know, gloves gives you a kind of set bonus, but it's just on the gloves themselves. I have to stress that nothing is more important than getting your weapon. The second that your weapon is available, you're going to want to get it. So let's talk about exactly how that works. It requires 7250 season earned, and it costs 3500 if you have a main hand, off hand, whatever, it's still the same. So the second you hit 7250, you want to be able to get that weapon. And you can try to get another piece, but it's actually going to be delayed by about 50 or 200 points, depending on what piece you got. So basically, you can only get 2 trinkets. You can get 2 1750 pieces or a 2250 piece before you get your weapon. Otherwise, just stockpile your Conquest. You might have like 5k before you get your weapon, but trust me, it's going to be worth it. So another thing about that to mention about the Celestials is the Celestials do not drop your trinkets or your weapon. So if it takes a long time to get you your Conquest, you might want to just get your double trinkets and your weapon just in case something drops off of Celestials that you don't want to get double gear. Another good way to factor this in is to try to stockpile your honor before the weekends. So when you go to do Celestials the next week, when server resets on Tuesday, you can do your Celestials and then buy whatever pieces you need with your honor. So that's kind of the most maximum way to figure out what kind of gear you need. And if you need to figure out what pieces you want first, you can go check out that other video, which I'll link at the end here. So the last thing I'm going to be talking about isn't really about gearing at all, but it's going to be talking about common courtesy with pugs. So as you can see here, I'm frost tanking without even being in blood presence, but I'm with friends. And they know exactly what's coming for them and all that kind of stuff. So I can talk about a few things here. One, you can't do this if you're not geared. I am PvE geared, and I'm also PvP geared. I'm just carrying my friends here. But you can DPS as a tank queue. It's really not that big of a deal. You do need to have some gear. Most of the mitigation will be with just your armor and your stamina at this point, to be honest. But tanking is more than just sitting there and taking damage and having aggro. So there's a lot of like ins and outs of tanking, and please don't do it unless you know how to tank. You're still the leader of your group and the leader of your pug, and it's really important that you know what you're doing. And if you don't, just don't do it. It'll be faster queues, but you're going to wipe more, and it's going to cost everyone repairs, and everyone's going to hate you, and you may even get kicked. Although, I'm not here to talk about the wonderful pug system and why tank and healers never get kicked, even when it's their fault for the wipe, but yeah. So I'm just saying, make sure you know what you're doing. I'm going to throw a couple bosses up here that a lot of people mess up for pugs, and when you do it the maximum efficient way, it's really, really smooth. So I'll throw up a couple of those that you guys can check out if you want to do this. But again, do not do this if you are under geared.